Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC Podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with the rap whisperer Wendy discussing the importance of remaining independent today, writing letters to Tupac in prison, and why she loves music. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC Podcast, and I'm sitting down with the legendary Wendy herself. Wendy Day. I was like...
Wendy Day.
Wendy Day. Like
Nobody calls me Wendy. It's Wendy Day. Even my husband. Wendy Day.
You have one of those names, like you have to say the whole name, like right. Jim Carrey. Like, you don't just say Jim.
Right.
Jim Carrey. Right. No, but so first off, I want to ask you, well, first, how are you doing today?
I'm great today. Thank you for asking.
We had a
We're doing a podcast in a studio. Like, who has access to a studio? Like a multi-million-dollar studio to do a podcast. It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You got to utilize what you got. You know
exactly.
What I mean? And make sure you getting this knowledge, which is why I'm excited to talk to you, because that's what you do every day.
Yes. I'm so ready to download some today, too. So this is good.
Okay. So who is Wendy Day?
Who the hell is Wendy Day? I'm one of those people that doesn't really have a specific job in the industry. I got into the music industry based on my love of music. I started listening to rap at 1980. I realized that makes me like old as fuck.
It's okay.
But yeah, I used to ride my dinosaur and listen to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. But seriously, I started listening to rap in Philadelphia, where I did my undergraduate degree.
That's simple.
Actually, I went to Moore College of Art, which is an art school. Yeah, yes. I got a degree in graphic design before my degree in AFAM studies. But in 1980, I started listening to rap. I loved the energy and the passion in the music. It was kind of party music back then. And I just really loved the whole vibe of it. And
what type of music did you listen to before rap?
Rock. Classic rock. Led Zeppelin, AC/DC.
See, I work in radio, and a lot of the hip-hop like personalities currently, they started off in rock. Like in
really?
The rock, yeah.
Actually,
before
that doesn't
they went
surprise
to
me.
urban.
That doesn't surprise me because it was the biggest format at the time.
At the time, right?
Yeah,
that's dope.
That makes perfect sense.
Got into rap.
Yep.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No problem at all. So got into rap as a fan, and I was in corporate America, and I was pretty fortunate. I was in sales, and I was pretty good at it. So I was making a lot of money. I was in my early 20s, and I always thought, because I come from a poor background, I always thought that money would make me happy. And it didn't. Like, who knew that, you know? So when I was turning 30, I really wanted to do something that I was passionate about. You know, like the money was great, but it just wasn't where it was at for me.
You were itching for...
Exactly, for something. And at that point in time, I had already gotten a master's degree in African American studies. And as a white person in AFAM studies, you're either qualified to teach or to write. And I really didn't want to do either of those, or just stay in school and become a scholar. And I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something to help people of color. And I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I had just come back from living in Montreal for 3 years. I worked for a small liquor company that I helped start.
Oh, wow. What was it called?
Aravis.
Aravis.
Yep. And Seagram's eventually purchased it.
Gotcha.
And the thing about Seagram's, they're so big that either they purchase you or they put you out of business.
Exactly. It's like Monopoly.
Exactly. It is Monopoly. Yeah. It's like, so when they say they want to buy you, it's like, okay, we just hope the price is what we're worth. And it was.
Yeah.
But the great thing is, the guy who owned the company that I was running gave me a chunk of money and said, here, thanks for everything. Mm. And two things came from that. One, I had more money than I ever had in my life. And it was about $500,000, which,
wow.
Doesn't seem like a lot now.
No.
When you're in your 20s,
that's enough.
Like, you think you never have to work another day in your life, But more importantly, it taught me that I could do whatever I set my mind to.
Yeah.
I would never have started a liquor company by myself. I would have never thought to do this. But here was this guy who was an engineer by trade, and it's what he wanted to do. He chose the liquors that that he saw when he was skiing in France in the Alps.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I want to import these into the US, which is kind of funny because he was in Montreal. And he brought me in to do that. And I would have never at, 25 or 26 years old, I would have never started my own liquor company.
Yeah, like who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Yeah.
Right.
So he started it with, like, I don't even remember what our start was, but it was somewhere around like 100 or 200,000, and we turned it into a like a $7 million company.
How did you do that? Like, what were the
hard work? Yeah, we had to go through all the legal processes. It was very much like the music business, surprisingly.
So it's a great, easy transition.
It was a very easy transition for me because it's all about having distribution. It's a male-dominated industry, the liquor industry, just like music. And it's all about having, at the end of the day, all vodkas are the same. All bourbon is the same. It's about branding.
Mm-hmm.
And, every rapper is different. I don't mean to imply that all rap is the same. But at the end of the day, it's all music, and it's all about building your brand and standing out and having the best product you can have, but then reaching the fans who will support your product.
Exactly.
Exactly. And it was a really great background for me. So I came back to New York, to the U.S. In the early 90s, and in 1992, I started Rap Coalition, and it's a not-for-profit organization to help artists that are signed to oppressive management contracts or label deals. It pulls them out of bad deals for free. And
which is like, why was it a not-for-profit? Why did you start Rap Coalition as a not-for-profit business when a lot of people were in such bad deals that could have been a means of...
Oh my God, I could have gotten rich.
That just tells me, I guess, something about who you are as a person. Yeah. But if you could, in words, describe why.
Yes, I can.
Why do that for free?
Yes, for two reasons. One, remember that funny little African-American degree that I had? So
it's not even funny. Because I went to an HBCU, so it wasn't, uncommon for me to see that people were pursuing African-American studies degrees.
That's right.
I went to Howard.
Okay. So you get it.
I get it completely. That's why I was going to ask you, even to that point of education too, before we get into the Rap Coalition. How do you think that even benefited you? And I'm sure this will intertwine with this question. Like, how did studying African American studies and even your marketing degree, your graphic design degrees, how that all played
Everything
into this?
Played into it. It's funny because we go to school thinking we're going to do a certain thing when we get out, and most people don't end up doing that. Most people sort of just pocket the information, store it in their brain, and move on and do whatever it is that makes them happy or whatever they can find that can, afford them to feed their family.
Right.
But for me, what I learned from graphic design was that you're always at the whim of somebody else's taste. And that's why I'm not a graphic designer today. It's like I would do these really cool logos.
And then you got to get approved. And it's like, well, I don't really like that. And then I got,
it's like, oh, Wendy, this logo is beautiful. I see that it's blue. My wife doesn't like blue. Could you make it brown?
Like, no.
It's like, what the fuck? It's not going to look good brown. Well, I'm the client, so do it.
Right. And it's just like, now this is my name on this terrible
something I'm not proud of. It's like, how can I do? Okay, so that's out. But it taught me that I had to be able to get along with people, and I had to be able to either pitch my idea to convince them why something should be something that they don't necessarily want, or I would have to settle and compromise, which of course you do in a lot of cases. From my business degree, it's kind of obvious what I learned from my MBA. My MBA was in marketing, so I learned how to market and how to brand. But when I studied at McGill in the late 80s, and psychographics were just coming in.
What is that?
That's where you learn how people think based on certain traits that they possess, like their lifestyle, where they live, how they think. So in the late 80s, it narrowed it down to 11 categories. Now it's a little broader because people have changed. But it taught me to learn different lifestyles of people and market to their lifestyles instead of market to them individually, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So the thinking is that people that rock climb, for the most part, kind of have similarities, if you will. And I'm just picking this arbitrarily. I don't rock climb, nor do I know anything about them. So I'm really talking out my ass. But having said that, it's not hard to figure out that somebody who rock climbs is probably a little bit healthy. They probably, they probably want to eat healthy. They want to drink a lot of water. So if I were a water company, I would market to like rock climbers. I'd reach out to cyclists. I'd reach out to health club enthusiasts. You know, it's marketing to a lifestyle instead of just like an age demographic. Oh, we want to market to men between 18 and 24 who are making 30 grand a year. This kind of took it a step further. So I learned a lot from that. And
that
then
was very ahead of your time, because I think
way
even
ahead.
now, because like even now, you know, with companies now, they're starting to appeal to lifestyle.
Yes.
Like they're looking for lifestyle influencers because you have social media, and then you're looking at, you know, even with like ad placement and things like that, a lot of things with sports companies, Adidas to Nike to whoever, they market to lifestyle.
Yes.
Puma is a perfect example of that, with Jay-Z getting on to Puma right now. I think that's interesting, and that you were doing that or learning
like
that
40 years ago or however long, 30 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And it's made me like my Facebook ad game is wicked. You know, because of that, I've learned how to really target market. And then, of course, my African American studies background, I chose Temple because it's an Afrocentric school, and I wanted to be as extreme and accurate as possible.
That's in Philly,
and
right?
it is, yeah, and that was important to me. And I lived in New York at the time.
Got you.
So I was commuting like back to Philly in order to take classes and such. And that all came from a Chuck D lyric, a Public Enemy lyric. Like it inspired me to study who Malcolm X was, and then that led to me reading the books that Malcolm read when he was locked down, at least the ones that I could find that were still in print.
Right.
And I was in New York at the time, there's the Schomburg Center, which is a research center for African American culture that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then I also had access to the NYU library, which was really cool.
How?
So I was doing classes for up and coming rappers to teach them business skills, and NYU was giving me space to do it in their classrooms for free.
You've just been educating.
I've been educating since like day one.
Since the
and always free. Like I just feel that as somebody who spent a lot of money on education, I just feel like education should be free and open to everybody. I just feel like if you want the knowledge, you should be able to go and get it no matter what.
Which is why I think the internet has saved a lot.
Oh my God,
and it should save a lot. And that's what I was going to speak to your YouTube channel. We were speaking about off the record, and how much free knowledge you have.
Yeah.
And I kind of opened up to you about a conversation that I have often with artists, or especially indie artists, who are like, I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, where do I get the information? Which is what I love about Patchwerk too, and what we're doing with the podcast, the workshops, etc. But you've been doing this, and as I was researching you, I'm like, damn, like scrolling through all these videos of you just talking game.
Yes.
For free.
Yes. Yes. And doing it just real basic, like it's in my office in my house.
I love it.
It's real basic. And it's funny because when I started those videos, like I thought that it had to be like some next level shit, right? So I set up a room in my house that has a bookcase, and I got these red chairs and this black, red, and white carpet, and you know, I bought lights and mics. Yeah, I made a little set, and I thought, okay, here we go. And then I was in a hotel room, and I did one, you know, and that one got more hits than the ones on my little Wendy Day set. And I'm like, oh man, I could have saved that money. So I just started doing them like wherever I was.
Yeah.
And I found that the ones where I'm sitting at my desk in my house get the most views and the most response because it's just basic. Yeah. And I think people don't want to see things that are super polished, you know. Maybe they do if it's on, you know, the Oxygen network, but when it's on YouTube, it's like the results are better when I'm just like me and doing it guerrilla.
I feel you completely. So on one of those videos, actually, you said that I don't know if this was actually your video. It might have been a video call that you did with two other gentlemen, and I can't remember their names right now, but it's okay. You say that you do not recommend or don't think that artists need a record deal in today's business.
Absolutely
this was
not.
2017, but obviously...
Oh, I'll say it today.
Today.
More than ever.
Why and what do you suggest for new artists? Because a lot of people are still getting in really crappy deals today.
Yes.
When we have seen over and over with many cases of artists that have thrived as independent artists and maybe get a distribution deal, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or probably get a distribution deal.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest for new artists, and why did you even say to begin with that record deal is just like unnecessary almost?
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to give up a whole lot of game here, so take notes, people.
Write it down.
Exactly, write it down. Or just hit rewind a lot.
So you get it.
But you don't need a record deal in today's music industry. If you wanted a record deal, like if you decided that you would not be complete unless you signed to Atlantic or Def Jam or Sony or Interscope or whoever, you still need to build a buzz to attract that label. Like you can't just start reaching out to people that work at the label and attempt to set up a meeting. It doesn't work that way. Record companies are businesses, and they're in the business to make money from music. And it reduces their risk to sign an artist who is already moving a little bit in the marketplace. So if you've got some movement, you've got a great buzz, you've got great social media numbers, your YouTube videos are getting real views, like a lot of real views, and you're being paid to do shows not only inside of your home area, but outside of your home area, that signals to record labels that there's something there, you've got some movement. And it also gives you a little bit of leverage so that you can negotiate a better deal for yourself than the average record deal. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure most people listening to this know that an average record deal is some bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
especially today.
Yeah. I mean, you need to have something a little better.
Today, like even when it comes to artist make, I know you currently work with, it's just for people who aren't familiar with Wendy Day. She's worked with a number of artists over the years, from Master P to
Cash Money, Eminem, David Banner,
UGK,
Razkaz, UGK.
Like anybody,
we'd be here all day if I have to name
if you
drop.
have the list, right? Which I know we don't need to, because if you know Wendy Day, you know these things. But also currently you've worked with Trouble today as well as Lil Donald now, and I kind of almost lost my train of thought there, but. For today's artists, in terms of like streaming, a lot of the money that where our new artists getting their money from, because it's not the same.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you said that, because it kind of segues into what I was starting to say about, you know, if you want to get a record deal, you still need to stand out. Well, if you want to stay independent, you got to stand out too.
Exactly.
So it's the same path that you're taking, whether you want to get signed to a label or whether you want to stay independent. Once the money starts coming, you don't need a record label. In order to succeed in the music business, you need great music. You need really solid grind. You've got to be a hard worker, which means you have to outwork everybody else out there. You need know-how, which is available to everyone. And you need funding. You need money. So as long as you can find those things, you can be successful in the music business. You don't need a record label to do it for you, because that's really what they bring to the table, except the grind. You have to always supply your own grind.
Exactly.
But the reason that I get so excited about working with independent artists is that in today's music business, you can draw a circle around where you live or where you're based, and like a 5-hour driving radius, and that can become your target market. And then you're able to work that market yourself, put out your music, travel in that market, work on the internet, you know, set up an ad campaign through Facebook, do an influencer marketing campaign on YouTube, you know, set up SoundCloud, and go through even a TuneCore or a DistroKid at a basic level for distribution to get your music into the marketplace, and then just get out into the market and actually work your music. Like, just reach as many people as you can, hit high schools, hit college campuses, hit the hoods, you know, whatever your market is, find out where your fans are and reach them where they hang out.
What I think that a lot of new artists miss too, because you get caught up into the internet, and you do see cases like a Father off of Records where they did get hype, you know, on the internet, which allowed them to move faster through like Tumblr and those different sites, right?
Right.
But at the same time, most cases, like a 21 Savage or whoever else is coming up, they went to the college campuses. They did
they actually worked
high
the streets.
schools, they worked the streets,
Yes.
like still.
He's a great example. He worked the clubs, like he really worked.
For sure. And like, I guess I asked that what you would say to an up-and-coming artist about not only working the internet, but working the streets.
Yeah, you've got to be able to, it's like running for a campaign for an office. Like,
exactly.
You've got to reach people and touch them. You know, everybody wants to have a story of how they met, 21 Savage or whoever. And it's always been like that in music. Like, people want to be able to touch the fans. And while they want to see your life behind the scenes on social media, nothing replaces that hand to hand.
Yeah.
As an artist, you got to get out there and you've got to work your music, and you've got to, I have a kind of joke in my office where you have to kiss babies and take pictures with fat girls. Like, that's how you get ahead in the music industry.
I wasn't expecting that.
And it's just that you want to be able to have pictures of you to post on social media and to post on your website, so that the fans have a reason to embrace you.
Exactly.
And they want to be able to see, like, okay, who's really gravitating to this artist? Is it mostly men, or are women embracing this artist too?
Right, which is another interesting thing. I manage an artist as well, but like, not as well, but I manage an artist. And we were talking a lot about social proof recently, that in 2018, people feel like you have to have social proof of acceptance.
Yes.
But
it has to be real social proof. You
proof.
can't just buy followers.
Exactly.
Because people are savvy and can tell now.
Organic. Yeah, it has to be organic. I like that, though. I like that we can bring reality to social media. But moving along, because I have so much to ask you. I'm like,
you're like 9 pages spread out in front of you. I'm
like,
a little
I've never
nervous.
had this many pages. No, it's extra, a little extra. But no, so Cash Money is the biggest thing that obviously one of your biggest deals. How did you, for those that aren't familiar, I guess, tell us a little bit about the deal that you made, which was 80-20. You basically demanded 80%, which that was just unheard of. It was crazy that you could.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
That you could just walk in. You consciously walked into a room and demanded 80%, like
and a couple $1 million up front.
I just still to this day, it just is. I mean,
it doesn't make
please
sense.
familiarize those who don't know about
Absolutely.
the Cash Money record deal.
Cash Money had been putting out music long before I ever came along, right? For 6 years, they had put out 31 different CDs. This is back when CDs were popping.
For sure.
And I happened to be in New Orleans, and I walked into a store called Peaches, and I saw a CD by Pimp Daddy, I think was his name. And he passed away not long after I bought the CD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sadly. But I bought this CD by a guy named Pimp Daddy, and I flipped it over, and I saw this sparkly diamond logo of a $sign, and I'm like, oh, who are these guys? So, I went to the hood looking for them, which was probably not the smartest thing I could have done. Needless to say, I couldn't find them. But about 2 or 3 months later, I got a call from a street team guy in Houston called Lump, and he called me and said, hey, I've got 2 brothers here, and they're looking for some help, and they hear you're looking for them. Can I introduce y'all? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, please do. Like, I've been down to New Orleans twice looking for them, and it's just not safe what I'm doing. So yeah, put them on the phone. So I got to meet them, and I really loved what they were doing. And I noticed that every time they had put out one of their CDs, they got somewhere between 5,000 and 25,000 sales, but the music was phenomenal, and I knew they could do better.
Right.
And it turned out that they were only marketing to Louisiana and to Houston, not even like all of Texas, like from New Orleans, like almost right down I-10. That strip. And so at that point in time, I had already learned how to market and promote music, working with Do or Die and Twista and some other people.
Which was an awesome deal as well. Like, I feel like just in general, everything that you've been a part of, you've been able to walk into these rooms and like negotiate or to like, I don't know, just ask for something crazy.
You know what it is?
What is it
it's
about
not
you?
me.
It's not you.
I wish it was me.
It's not.
Like, I'm not magic.
Okay.
I wish it was me. It's the leverage. Like, instead of, and the funny thing is, I'm not a deal maker. Like, I don't consider myself a deal maker. I've done maybe 15 deals in my career, but I could have done 150 with all of the artists that I know. It's just that most people aren't in a position where the deal that I could get them has value.
So it's like, is it relationships that build that, give you that leverage?
It's the sales and the buzz that the artist has
already,
where I can then bring them, instead of going to the A&Rs, I go right to the presidents of the label. So, you know, I'll do a deal with Craig Kalman instead of like the guys under him. So the guy who's actually cutting the check is the one telling me, yeah, I could do that, or no, I can't do that. That's not realistic.
Got you.
And because the artists have leverage, it's like I can go to Sony and Atlantic and Def Jam and Interscope, and they'll all be interested. And once everybody's interested, then a bidding war ensues.
Got you.
And that's what creates the great deals. So I always tell artists when they call me and say, hey, Wendy shot me a deal, you know, which I don't do anymore. I don't shop deals. But back in the day, they'd be like, Wendy shot me a deal. It's like, I can't. You don't have enough leverage. Like, you don't have enough going for you other than talent. And if I just bring you in under talent, you're going to get a crappy 12-point deal. Maybe you'll come out, maybe you won't. But if you go and you build a buzz for a year to a year and a half, or maybe even, you know, with Trouble, it took 3 years. You know, if you just build a buzz and get yourself to the point where labels come to you, at that point, you might not even need a deal. Like, you might, like with Trouble, he didn't need a deal. You know, he was making $200,000 a month just in show money, you know, and then on top of that, there was the streaming money, the merch money. So when Interscope stepped in, they saw, okay, he could make $1.4 million himself in, you know, just in his share of revenue. So when we offer him a deal, it's going to have to be way more than that,
right.
Or he'll tell us no.
Right, for sure.
You know? And for me, I didn't negotiate Trouble's deal at Interscope. His lawyer actually did it because I didn't think that he should get signed. I thought he should stay independent. I think that he understood Trouble better than Interscope ever could. And he's kind of his own special breed, you know what I mean? And so when he got to that point, it was like, dude, if you just hang in there and stay independent, like, you're going to own all of everything, 100% of your publishing, 100% of your masters. You're going to, you know, you're going to get 100% of all of your money instead of having to sign to Interscope and only get, you know, 15 to 18%, and they own all the masters, they own everything. Like, that, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. But some artists just really want to be part of that system, you know, and the great thing is today you don't have to. Yeah,
it's just I think to, you know, to that point, it's just what you want to sacrifice maybe, because it is more time and more effort to do it on your own.
Way more.
But at the same time, it's your own. So
exactly,
it's whatever you want to do.
And, you know, sometimes it's a blessing and a curse to be from Atlanta. I hear artists from all over the country saying, yo, I wish I was from Atlanta because it's so easy to get on. But it's really not, because when you're here, like, if you look at Trouble's friends, they're all signed to major labels like 21 Savage, Future, Thug. Like, everybody that's around him is signed, and then he was the only one independent. So I could see where he might have been like, well, fuck.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
And he was probably making more money than most of the artists who were signed because he was independent, but he didn't have that level of international fame like that the Migos have.
To be a star,
yeah. And I think that probably, and I haven't discussed it with him, I don't really know what made him take that deal, but I'm guessing that that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, for sure. You want to take off to this, like certain height. But I don't know. I'm in the middle of, you know, well, I don't know. I think it just works by who it is and like what you truly want. And sometimes you get, and then that's also why I asked, like, how are these deals still common today? Like, where you hear, you know, you hear these things, but it's just like, what did you want to sacrifice in that moment, or what in that moment? Because later on, you might be like, damn, I hear people to this day like, oh, I just got out of this deal, or whatever. So you know, it is what it is. I guess to that though, I do want to emphasize that I do think that aside from the talent and the leverage that you would have going into a room with Trouble's music versus another artist, is also that you've already established these relationships with these people over the years. Let's rewind a bit. And how were you able to say, hey, it's Wendy Day, I want to set up a meeting? Or how did you get into these rooms?
I think that the leverage that the artists had, the first deal I did was Master P's deal. I was part of a team. It wasn't my deal. I was one of many people. But with Do or Die and Twista, like, that was me and the lawyer in the room, you know? And, you know, the industry watched me put out Do or Die's Po Pimp, which went platinum. Then they watched me follow that up with Twista. Then they watched me do a joint venture for Twista at Atlantic, which was a 50-50 deal, which at the time was unheard of, right? Mm-hmm. And then I followed that up with Eminem. So it's like, it's like the consistency, I think, is what made labels realize. And then on the Rap Coalition side, like when we did the deal for Twista at Atlantic, we also pulled Mad Skills and Artifacts off of Atlantic at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So we were giving them an artist that would make the money, and then we took from them 2 artists who weren't really making a lot of money and weren't happy. And it was just kind of like the right thing to do.
Right.
And it was really cool how that happened, because it wasn't like, oh, here's this bitch that's pulling artists off of our label. It became like, here's this deal maker that's making us money. And oh, by the way, we're giving up artists that we wouldn't normally have really gotten behind anyway.
I got you.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was a blessing, like it was a win-win, you know? And I think that's more that, like, the money that I help labels make is what gets me in the room.
For sure.
And of course, there's some labels that love me and there's some labels that hate me. It just really depends. You know, Jive was always a label that was trying to bid for every artist that I've ever shopped a deal for. But they always demanded to have a 50-50 co-pub deal. And I would never, ever, ever give up the publishing for any of the artists. So I never got to do a deal with Jive. You know, I did a renegotiation for UGK, but I never really got to sign an artist to Jive. And I could see where they might be like, oh, fuck her. You know what I mean?
But what I love is that at the end of the day, whenever you walked into a space, you were there for the good of the artist.
Absolutely.
And it's proven over and over again, just like the type of person that you are. I wanted to ask, like, why do you think you're the person for the job, like, to do these things and to educate these people?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because, I mean, you started off this podcast by introducing why you studied African American studies and, like, how you could have either taught or just became a scholar. And, you know, we understand those things about, you know, education. But then to go on through music and even the liquor business, marketing, branding, and continue to do that, it speaks to who you are as a person. Why do you think you're the right person for the job?
You know, with 26 years in, it's really easy to see my track record, and it's really easy to see my altruism. Because if I was gonna fuck somebody over, I would have done it by now. Right, you know what I mean? And I always kind of joke because, you know, when people get to know me, the first thing they say is, you know, wow, you had Master P and Eminem and Cash Money and David Banner and all these people that, you know, Bootsy and Webby, and you had access to all these people and their deals. And like, if you had signed them to you, like to Wendy Day Middleman or Wendy Day Records, and then gone and done a deal for Wendy Day, like, my artists have sold more than Puffy or Jay-Z or anybody, you know? And that's just not me. Like, I accepted very early on in the music industry that I'd never be wealthy in music, because I'm not willing to do the one thing you have to do to get rich in music, and that's take ownership of another human being.
Exactly.
And I can't do it, you know?
I love that.
I just can't do it. So,
but let me ask you this, and I know people have asked you before, but, like, how did it feel to negotiate the deal for Cash Money, but still you were taken advantage of, not being paid what you were owed? Like, and I kind of thought of how I was going to ask that question to you, because I'm not really
That's
concerned.
Exactly how.
I'm not really concerned with, like, did you feel spited? Like, of course, that's fucked up regardless, right?
Yeah.
But
I actually didn't feel spited.
what did you feel in that moment?
I was more embarrassed than anything because I run a not-for-profit organization that prevents artists from getting taken advantage of, and I got taken advantage of.
Exactly.
So I felt like the world's biggest boob, you know? Like, I felt so stupid. That was more it than anything. And then it was also very shocking because I know how hard I worked. I know they saw how hard I worked. Exactly. It was like, who does this to another human being, you know? And I actually sued them and got paid. So anybody that's out there listening, I don't want you to be like, oh man, that's fucked up.
No,
it's the music business, you know? Back then though, I was the first person that hadn't gotten paid. I didn't have the benefit of seeing the history. Like if we look at the history of Cash Money, they don't pay anybody.
Right.
So if it happened today, it would be like, oh yeah, that's just Cash Money. They don't pay anybody. But when it was, I was like the first, if not one of the first. And gotcha. It's like, wow, like who fucking does this? This is crazy. They didn't pay me. They didn't pay their lawyers. They eventually did pay the lawyers. The lawyers got paid. And then I had to sue in order to get my share of what the agreement was. The great thing is I had a paper trail. So I walked into the lawyer who sued for me. They're called litigators, lawyers that sue. And I walked into his office with like a banker's box of papers and just dumped it on his desk and said, okay, call me when you're ready. And, you know, he went through all the papers. He's like, my God, you're a hoarder. You keep everything.
But it's so good to cover your ass.
It absolutely was.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm happy that you did that because it could have been you were taken advantage of because you didn't protect yourself or you didn't even get what you were owed, period.
Right.
Which it wasn't the case. You were able to still, while being a good person, cover yourself. Because anything could have happened. They could have said that you stole money from them or anything.
They could have said anything, and they never did.
Right.
And they've actually said really great stuff about me behind my back, which is, you know, really cool of them because they don't have to. They could be like, oh, fuck her, she's a bitch, blah, 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 you know, whatever. But the reason it didn't stop me, and nobody's ever asked me this, like, yo, like, why didn't it shut you down? Because, you know, I lost everything I owned at that point in time.
Exactly.
I got evicted from where I lived because I couldn't pay the rent. Like, it was really ugly. And like the price was really high. Mm-hmm. And nobody's ever said to me, you know, why didn't you just go and get a job in corporate America? Like what made
like
you
go back
keep
to
going?
Your sales or whatever.
And there was never a time where I said, I don't want to be doing this. And I'm very self-analytical. And for me, I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it because it was the right thing to do. And I was doing it because I wanted to do the deal. So when they didn't pay me, I didn't really lose anything. I mean, I did. I lost material shit, but I didn't really lose anything. You know, it didn't stop me. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't lose me because that wasn't my goal. My goal was to do the deal and the deal was done, you know, and then my goal was to go on and do the next Cash Money deal and the next Cash Money deal and the next Cash Money deal. You know, and I did. I was able to do that because what they took from me was replaceable.
Exactly.
You know?
And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm happy that the situation worked itself out.
Me too.
And that, you know, you continue to do amazing things. I was going to say you worked with, like I said, Eminem, Master P, UGK, and so on for distribution deals specifically. My next question was, where you've already answered, is like what made you the right person for the job. But I guess to even go to that point, like why music? Because you could still do some of the same things. Maybe it just wouldn't be in the music industry.
I could. Yeah, I could do it in any field. Really,
field, right.
You know, like every field has oppression and fuckery. You know,
exactly.
But for me, I feel like I'm giving back to rappers because I get so much joy from the music. Like even today, I still love hip hop. And I know that a lot of people my age and a lot of my peers are like, oh, hip hop is dead. It's garbage. No, it's really not. Like it's been changing since 1980 when I started to listen to it. So every, 5 to 7 years, the music completely changes. And I love that about it.
Exactly.
You know?
So let me ask you, and today, who are some of your current favorites in hip hop, or who are some people that you're looking out for in terms of the music?
I really like Post Malone, and I never thought I would say that. You know, I really like Ray Schremer.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people. Black, I think his music's amazing. Anderson .Paak, oh my fucking God, like Switch. Anderson .Paak. Like,
oh yeah, Anderson .Paak is amazing.
Like dude, there's just so much great music out here. You know?
It's like 10 times, I don't know how many times more music that is out here. I read something actually yesterday that said, don't look at the market as saturated. If it's for you, it's for you. Exactly. And I think that's like a big testament to anybody in the music industry, whether you're an artist or a producer, right?
Exactly.
So what would you say to somebody who's like, I have great music, but I'm just like, there's so many people that have great music right now.
Completely oversaturated. You got to be true to yourself. One of the things that I find artists do, and this has been my entire 26-year career, it's not like a new thing, right? Where artists hear what's hot and then they try to create that. Mm-hmm. And the labels play a role in that, because the labels, if you meet with them or somebody that works at a major label, they're going to tell you, we want the next Ray Shremmer, we want the next Jay-Z, we want the next, Post Malone, whatever. Mm-hmm. And artists take that to mean that they want that sound, and it's not. They're not saying they want that sound, they're saying they want that success.
Exactly.
And that success comes from the music being different and new when those guys are working on it and putting it out. Even what my New York friends call mumble rap, which is really opioid rap. But, they'll be like, oh, there's all these guys doing mumble rap. And to them, it all sounds the same. But to me, it all sounds different. There's a different quality to each person that's making money doing mumble rap. But as a new rapper, you can't come up and say, oh, I'm going to do mumble rap.
Right.
And try to like knock off Trouble or knock off, whoever has that style and say, okay, I'm just going to follow them and do what they're doing. No, there's already them. There's already a Future. Don't be Future. There's already a Future.
Exactly.
And that's the advice that I would give to an artist. Like, okay, you're making great music, but is your great music different enough to warrant you having your own lane, but not so different that you push people away? Mm-hmm. Because you can't go completely left with music, or there's no lane for you. There's no lane to fit in.
Exactly. And I would even, because sometimes I think artists get influence confused with like originality.
Right.
And so like it's okay to be influenced by a Kendrick or a J. Cole or whoever, right, a Trouble or Future, but don't, let that become who you are, because that's not who you are. You're not Kendrick and you're not Jay-Z or whoever.
Exactly. So, and it's also okay to grow. Like artists think that, okay, I have to make this certain type of music and I have to only do this.
Right.
And that's not the case. What you trying to say?
I'm like,
and that's not the case. Like, I'm working with Little Donald right now. He's a great example. Like, his last big single was in 2016 and it was called Juice. Mm-hmm. And it got him signed to free bands. He was, I think, the first artist signed to Future. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the music he's making now, he has a song called Do Better, which is about domestic violence. And then he has a song releasing, I think it released yesterday, called Suicide.
Oh, I haven't heard
And it was a reaction from, really because his cousin committed suicide a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
And he's had a really hard time dealing with that. And then a couple weeks ago, Kate Spade committed suicide.
It's been a lot.
Anthony Bourdain committed suicide. And he was just like, holy fuck. So it's like something that's been eating at him. So he went in the studio and made a song.
Which I wish I had heard prior to our conversation, but I am so happy for that, one, because you see the other side of people creating songs about suicide and just them feeling depressed, and we've overlooked that.
Right.
Like we just like, oh, I like the song or whatever, but you overlook that people are clearly having issues right now. So it's something that we need to talk about, but that's what makes that song special.
It is, because it's a reaction to how he was feeling. Like, it's inviting people into his brain in a way, whereas Juice was not. Like, Juice was a shake your booty song, let's be real.
You need the...
Right.
To get the attention and then
and it's really who he is, though. Like,
I love that.
It's really, like, he is that person. Like, it's not like he went from making one type of music and then he switched to making another. This is all him. Like, this has always been him. And if you listen to his music going back 5 years, which is when I first started listening to him, like, he's really changed and grown, and he's become like this spectacular human being, along with his skills, improving and increasing and growing. And it's just been really kind of incredible.
That's dope. That's dope. Shout out Lil Donald for real. You've worked with so many great artists, and I guess the one artist being that I'm such a huge fan of Tupac is that you had that relationship with him.
Yeah, the friendship.
Friendship at that, not just like working
not just
with
business,
him,
right?
but you were genuinely friends with Tupac. So I guess I saw that you made a comment about wanting to escape death row. But even beyond that, I want to just know like what that friendship was and how you were able to grow and nourish that relationship with him, especially during those times.
Right. He was in New York, and he, as you know, he was from the West Coast, and he was in New York, and he got into a beef with some very powerful street guys in New York, and he was going through a court case. He was on trial. And I think it was coming down to the verdict. He had like one more day that he had to go. And as most people that are Tupac fans know, he went to Quad Studio and he caught a beat down that night. They pistol whipped him. And I was worried about him. I didn't know him at the time. In fact, to be honest with you, I didn't like him. He was somebody that I would see standing on line, to get into the clubs. Like I'd be on the VIP line, he'd be on the VIP line, and he'd be so loud and so boisterous and so annoying that like sometimes I would get off the line and go to the back so that I wouldn't have to deal with him. Because like he was just like always the center of attention, always annoying, always like that guy, and it was like, Jesus, fuck. So when he caught the beat down in New York, remember, the internet wasn't around, so we only had gossip, like, telephone to telephone. We didn't, what are the streets saying? So we didn't really know very quickly what was going on. So I feared for his life, not because I liked him, but because he was a rapper and I didn't want to see something happen to him.
Right.
And I had a relationship at that time with Fruit of Islam in New York. So I called Brother Arthur and I said, hey, could you please look out for this guy? And they surrounded him. You've seen all the photos of them, protecting him. They were his security until he was sentenced and he went off to jail. And I had never told anybody that I did that. I guess somebody did. And he wrote to me from Rikers Island and he said, I really appreciate that you looked out for me because you don't know me and that's just really, that's really cool. But then he said something that really pissed me off. He said, it's really cool that somebody would like my music so much that they do that for me. And I'm like, motherfucker.
It ain't about your music.
That's not why I did it. It ain't about your music. So I wrote him back and I told him that. And I expected the nastiest letter back ever. Like, fuck you, But I told him like, dude, like, first of all, your music's okay. It's not that great. I don't really listen to it. I'm more of a purist. My taste is more Raz-Kaz than Tupac. And by the way, you're a fucking asshole. And this is why bad shit happens to you because you're that guy that always has to be, you're always in some trouble. Like you bring hip hop down. And when I said that to him, it like, he really internalized that because he viewed himself as yes, he's really dead. He viewed himself as an activist. So when I said that to him, he's like, oh my God, how could you say that? So he wrote me back. Like, I guess he thought about it because he wrote me back like the kindest letter ever. He's like, wow, then if you did that because you were worried about me as a rapper, that's even more cool. And, you're right. I do bring a lot of this on myself. And when he came back humble, I came back to him humble because I saw a side of him that I had never seen before. And through our letters back and forth, we became friendly. I sent him books. I sent him The Prince, Machiavelli. I sent him How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like I sent him a bunch of books while he was in Clinton. I do that for all rappers. Like anybody that's locked down, I send them books. I wish he had been around for the 48 Laws of Power because he would have loved that book. But anyway, and the books are really what brought us together because I was sending him like stuff that I was reading. I was sending him shit that I loved, and it gave him and I the opportunity to have common ground. And I saw how intelligent and how caring and how much of an activist he was. Like he really cared about people of color. Like he loved Black people more than anybody that I've met since then. And that's where our friendship stem from?
There were many, and not to go on a tangent, but there were many points in which, as you described Tupac, that I realized about one of my current, or was my current, like, fave, I guess, to date, Kanye, and how much controversy has been around, the things that he's saying, what he's doing, how he's moving, as opposed to who he was.
Right.
And I feel like he just has been a very, very much so a pillar in his community, though.
Right.
And then, things happen in your life. It may not have been jail, but it might have been a passing of a close family member, or, just changes in your life as you grow and you progress. Even when you're talking about Lil Donald and like how his music progressed as an artist and as you grow, and just being that transparent. In Kanye's situation, I guess I would want to ask you, like, what do you think? If you think anything went wrong, like, what do you think changed or shifted in his career, his progression?
I met him. It's so hard for me to weigh in on Kanye because, first of all, I don't know him and I don't pretend to know him. I've never gotten to know him. I've chosen not to get to know him. I met him in '96 in Chicago and I didn't like him. I just didn't. I didn't appreciate the person he was. I met him through Rhyme Fest, and I just didn't. I didn't like his arrogance. It never crossed my mind at the time that he might be bipolar. Back then, that wasn't something that we really thought about. And, it's funny because in what you just said, like that I've never heard somebody compare Pac with Ye.
I never would have.
And now I'm wondering, was Tupac bipolar? Like, we'll never know, but maybe he was bipolar.
Or
I never thought about that.
I think that we don't consider mental illness, period. And especially not then. We didn't consider that people deal with shit. And like, the energy in the world even today, especially, with political climate and so on and so forth, the hatred that's in the world, you see it even more. So I think now we're like, okay, let's pay attention to what we're doing. And we have the
internet. Like, exactly. On Instagram, we're like in people's lives. Like, back in the 90s, I only knew about Kanye from like joking with his label reps. Like we would talk about, oh, what an asshole he is, or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. But now, like, the fans actually see it. It's no longer the inner circle that see who he is. Not to say that he's an asshole. I don't mean to imply that. I just personally don't like him as a person, just based off of something from 25 years ago, which is not fair either, you know?
But that's what I was saying, too, just like the growth and the changes. Because, like, on the outside, I guess, with being a true fan from the beginning, like, and to not even listening to this last album, me personally, whereas I have friends who are diehard like fans from the beginning and they have listened to the album, and I just think that you can I guess that's what I wanted to ask. Do you take personal from artists, like the artistry? Do you consider the music, or are you combining?
I can't separate it.
You can't separate it.
No, I wish I could. There's rappers that I used to be fans of, and then I got to know them, or I saw their business practices, or I saw how they secretly jack styles from other artists or songs from other artists, where I can't listen to their music anymore because I'm so disgusted by them as human beings. So it's very hard for me to separate the music from the person. Mm-hmm.
Tell me where you see music in the next 10 years.
I don't think I can go 10 years out.
Maybe 5.
Yeah, even 5 is hard because it changes so fast, I could probably go like a year to a year and a half out.
But maybe even like, not literally
I'll go
what
in
it
general.
sounds like. But
yeah, I won't know the sound.
Not what it sounds like, but what the shift that we see happening with like technology, with streaming content.
Right.
Like where should we be looking?
It's definitely going more independent. And it's definitely splintering more. So
what do you mean?
What I mean is, like, the way we have hip hop now, we have trap rap, we have emo rap, we have SoundCloud rappers. That's going to happen even more.
Subgenres.
Yes, definitely. There's going to be subgenres of the subgenres of the subgenres. Yes. So it's definitely going to splinter more because it's just so oversaturated that in order for everybody to fit into a box, and as humans, we like to compartmentalize. Thank you.
I got you.
The music, so that we can say, oh, this is where this person fits. So those boxes, they're getting bigger and there's more of them in order to accommodate everybody. And I also think that playlists are becoming more and more important. I think the radio is really declining. I'm thankful that it hasn't yet, because it's still, for for me and my team, it's still the easiest way to spread music amongst a large amount of people, especially women, because for some reason they still listen to radio.
Really?
Yeah, which is surprising.
It's
more women than men. Mm-hmm.
I can believe that, though. I work in radio, so I always hear or see women, being in promotions and programming. You see more women, and I don't know what that is. That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Whereas guys tend to more want to program what they listen to as opposed to listening to what's programmed for them.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So I told you this off the record, too. Recently, I've tried not to separate women from men in the industry and to asking those like limiting questions, I guess. But I do believe there are advantages and disadvantages to being a woman in the industry. And I know you can speak to those things from your own experiences. What would you say those disadvantages or advantages to being a woman in the industry?
There's both. There's advantages and disadvantages to being white in a black industry, and there's advantages and disadvantages to being female in a male-dominated.
And I was going to get to race too.
Right?
For sure.
So I noticed that, like, one of the disadvantages is that I'll give advice to somebody and they won't listen. And my husband, who's African-American, can say the exact same thing in the exact same way, and it's genius. And it's just kind of funny because it's like, damn, I said that. And then on the flip side, there's situations where he can tell somebody, I think you should do this. And they just look at him like, yeah, you look just like me. Fuck you. And then I'll say it and it's like, oh, white is right. So there's that whole dynamic at play. So it really just depends on the situation and the person, how they're going to respond to me. I've also noticed there's a third weirdness in there that you didn't mention, like I'm old for music.
So even,
and that's also a weird.
Though, is like a conversation
it's real.
I've been having recently.
It's real.
So because I don't see it that way. Like I know that, and then recently I had a meeting with someone about we were talking about content creation and like monetizing and owning your own content, right? And
yay.
Yeah, important. Hello. But no, we were talking about this, and he's older than me by some years. Like my sister's 13 years older than me, so I would say that's the age gap. And I realized I said or started a conversation by saying my generation versus his, and he immediately was like, But
there's a huge difference between your generation and his generation.
So it's a conversation.
And my generation. It has to be had, yes. For me, I've noticed that the industry is going much younger, and I'm really thankful for that because the fans are 13 to 26. So somebody that's my age, I'm 55. Somebody that's my age should not be running this shit. Mm-hmm. We should be helping the next generation or the generation after run this shit.
I'm happy you said that.
And I'm very unpopular because I say this all the time, and I'm very unpopular. Like right now, if you're an artist and you're older than 25, it's a struggle. And artists who are older than 25 get really angry when they hear me say that because it's like I'm cutting them off the knees, and I'm not a gatekeeper, so I'm not. Like, put out your own music, find your fan base, fucking sell your music, you're good.
Right, exactly.
But if you're looking to become a superstar and you're older than your early 20s, it's going to be really, really, really difficult, And that's just the reality of the situation. Like most of the artists that I'm working with right now are 19 to 23. When I started working with Trouble, he was 27. I think he's 31 now. He was 27, and I was worried that he was a little bit old for what we were doing. It's just that he looked younger.
He looked young. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly. And that's really important right now today in the music industry. When I started working with him, it wasn't as big a deal to be young. But right now today, especially, the industry's looking for people that are 19, 20, 21.
And that can relate, this is who the people that you're targeting. And if you're, we're not thinking the same things, because I work with a younger artist and the whole collective is younger. than myself, and I'm 25. So
Right, you're still
I
young.
even see, I'm still
Yeah.
young, but I even see the
difference between
in,
you- yeah.
you know. So I can imagine what my little sister is trying to listen to versus what I
Absolutely.
would. So definitely and great.
And no fan wants to look at a rapper and be like, oh my God, he looks like my dad. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants that. They want to see a reflection of themselves.
Exactly, for sure. So people know you for getting the job done.
That's true.
That's very, very accurate.
Because that's all I do is work. I don't really like hang out. I don't.
I wanted to actually say this earlier.
Kind of pathetic, really.
It's
But
not.
I love it.
It's not.
I love my life.
You have a life. That's your life. That's what
Exactly.
you carved out for yourself. And even we were talking about too when Sammy came in with her daughter, Akira. Like, you don't have children.
Right. It was a conscious choice.
You're married. So you have your husband, but you're married.
Yes.
Yes.
But,
you have your.
but I
husband,
just met him I met him 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
We've been together 6 years. So
wow.
like my whole career, I was somewhat single.
Gotcha.
You know, like I would have like guys that I spent time with, and I had, you know, like I didn't really have a serious person in my life until like 2000.
Oh, wow.
Or 2001. And I started my company in 1992 because I just couldn't do both. Like I really admire women that can have relationships and business because I can't.
It's hard.
Like I really suck at that.
It's really hard. A lot of women that I sit down, especially on this podcast with and talk to about that, you know, they say that they have to consciously like write that in or like, you know what I'm saying? Like pencil your relationship in. And I even
it's a lot of work.
Have to do the same thing. So yeah.
Even with Tony, like he works in the music industry and he works like a lot of my clients are his clients. He has his own clients too. But like he and I don't really see each other. Like we're so busy. It's like we pass in the hallway. Sometimes like he'll be just coming in from the studio going to bed and I'll be getting up, you know, and that's just life.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
But it's a life that you carved out for yourself.
Yes,
You made a conscious you chose that life for you. So, and you know, I think you definitely have to do what works for you. But I wanted to talk about when I saw you at the J Prince event where he was talking about his audiobook, The Art and Science of Respect, excuse me. And I felt like
it's a great book, by the way.
It is a really good book. I saw you and I saw how I might be saying this wrong, but how respected you were in that space. Like I felt like a lot of people were approaching you and your face looked familiar to me because we were supposed to get you on the podcast a while ago. So I was like, and I researched you and everything and I'm like, wait, I know her.
I know her. Yeah.
But I didn't know you yet. But I just saw how like respected you were in the room and I said, I need to talk to her because who is this woman? Like I want to know her. So talk about, I guess, too, that people know you for getting the job done and it's how important it is to build like a great reputation in the industry,
it's
but
so
also
important.
To gain that respect, not just as a woman, not just as a white woman,
just
but
as a person,
in the room. Why is that important, especially in the music business?
The music industry is about who you know. So your relationships are really key, especially in downturns. So if, and for me, I work for myself, so it's a little bit different. And for me, it's been a blessing. Somehow I've been able to remain relevant, which a lot of my generation hasn't been able to do. And there are times where if you're going to make a living off of the music business, the other people that respect you will throw you work so that you can still continue to eat. So if for no other reason than that would be a good reason to have great relationships. For me, great relationships are important because I'm very often calling people out. Like for somebody to be a fuckboy, I'm very vocal about that. And if I'm going to point the finger at somebody else and be judgmental, then I have to like walk the walk and talk the talk.
Exactly.
You you know what I mean? Like I can't be like the Republican senator who's anti-gay, but I'm sucking dick in the back room. Well, you know what I mean? Pardon me. That was a little visual, but
no, I feel you,
but that's the reality. Like if I'm going to call somebody out for taking advantage of an artist, then I have to make sure that I've done right by people and that I've lived by a code. And you know, I'm not perfect. I'm certainly not. I've said shit that I shouldn't say. I've done shit that I shouldn't do.
We all have.
But we all have, exactly. And it's the human side of me. But I think that, you know, over the 26 years that I've been doing this, I've definitely been tested. People have tried to like slip me money to look the other way. People have tried to like throw me extra shit to bring the artist to them instead of another label. Yeah. It's just the nature of this industry because so many people can be bought, and I've proven that I can't be bought or sold, you know? And I've even gotten to the point where, you know, like a violent side has come out in me against that. You know, I remember when I was shopping DJ DMD's deal, there was an A&R guy at Sony who said, if y'all give me 50 grand in a duffel bag, I'll make sure that the deal here is higher than any other label. And my reaction to him wasn't, no, fuck you. My reaction was, I can do that, but there'll be somebody standing at there's one way in and one way out at Sony. You're getting robbed on the way out. Like, I can give you the bag, but you will get robbed coming out of the building. And you have to come out of the building with that money at some point. It's cash. So my reaction can be a little bit more bizarre than I think what most people are used to.
What was their reaction to what you said, the A&R? What was his reaction?
He laughed, but in a very uncomfortable, because he didn't know if I was, and I was dead fuck serious. But he didn't know if I was just playing, and you know, we ended up doing the deal with Elektra anyway, so it wasn't even an issue.
Right.
But I was kind of so incensed, first of all, that he would think that we would do that.
Right.
And then second of all, that like he was a really powerful A&R guy. I don't know where he is now. He's long gone. Surprise, surprise. But I was surprised that there was somebody that was trying to do that kind of a backdoor side deal, because one of the most important things about getting signed to a label is that you're a priority and you don't get shelved. It's not about the money. Like, getting a deal is not the goal. Getting a deal is just one aspect of the goal. It's getting to the goal. Success is the goal.
Right.
A career is the goal.
Right.
You know, and to just get on the label, if we have to buy our way onto the label and get the best deal there, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no.
You know, because then we're not a priority.
We're not valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. What's the goal for Wendy Day? Speaking of goals, like, I mean, I'm sure you've accomplished, or we see that you have accomplished a lot and you've been successful, and that you've continued to maintain the level of, I guess, the value for like education and, you know, teaching these artists and success. But
because all of my clients are making money in music, which is that's really my goal. You know, whether you've heard of them or not, they're eking out a living in music, and to me, that's so important. And it's funny because I didn't know what was next, and I love that you asked me that because I now know. But for like 5 years, I was like, oh my God, what's next? Like, it's boring to just not have like something else. Something to look forward to, and that energy that comes with like a new thing to accomplish and take on. And it hit me about a year ago. I was really struggling, maybe a little longer ago. The economy was in a downturn. I was really struggling financially. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm Wendy Day. I shouldn't be struggling like this. Like, I shouldn't be about to lose my house and about to lose my car. This is crazy. Like, I've really helped way too many people. And I'm not the type of person to go and ask somebody for help. It's just not in me. I wish I could. I can't. It's hard. And it's not who I am. It's very hard for me. So I was like flipping real estate to make money. And I'm like, this is crazy. I really need like something in music to look forward to that will give me that energy to just go and go back in and tackle, right? And I was still in the music industry. It wasn't like I left. I still had clients and stuff. It's just that I was struggling.
Yeah, it was just slow.
And it was the tail end of me working with Trouble. And I decided that I wanted to start an incubator for rappers. I want to start a company that, and I'm working on it now, and it's taken like a year to put the foundation in place and the thought process and the business plan and figure out how's this going to work and who's going to run it with me and how are all the components going to work. But I want to be able to, when I first sat down, I'm bringing this 360, when I first sat down with you today, I said it takes talent, it takes money, it takes know-how, and it takes distribution in order to succeed. And the artists bring the talent and the grind, and the distribution is relatively easy to get. But what's hard is the know-how and the money. And that seems to be what most talented artists are missing. Sometimes it feels like the guys with the least amount of talent have the most money, and the guys with the most talent have the least amount of money. And I want to fix that. I want to be able to work with the artists that have some money, but not enough to get them all the way. And I want to help take them all the way. And I want to do it without ownership, which is the hard part, right?
Exactly.
Because that's where the money is, and that's where the reward is for the risk, which means I'm building a company that I can't turn around and sell at some point. It means I'm building a company for the sake of building a company. But my goal is to help as many artists as possible. I'd like to, and it'll probably start around January of this year coming. I want to help 10 artists a year, and I want to keep building, and I want to keep them in the incubator for as long as they need. But it's probably going to be like a 2 to 3 year process to get them to the point where they're financially feasible, where they can leave the nest and go fly. And whether they choose to stay independent or sign to a major label is certainly their choice. I'm hoping they stay independent because I see the value in that. But I also feel like if I'm teaching them properly and I'm showing them how, I'm thinking that they'll see the value in that, you know?
For sure. I think more people would be, or more artists would be understanding of that today.
Exactly.
So
and I think I just found the funding. So
awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats.
So I'm really excited.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the hard part.
The
is
money
finding somebody to believe in
that
artists that aren't already on the table. Like, believe in my dream. Don't believe in what I'm bringing to you.
Right, because they ain't got it right now, but I'm working towards
I'm working towards
that.
it. It's really, it's an unproven concept, although I'm a proven concept.
Yeah.
It's like you have to trust this 55-year-old white woman's judgment that she still knows what's hot in rap.
We trust you, Wendy. We trust you. If I had the funding, I'd throw it to you. So let me ask you the leaving, or for like the leaving words of advice to specifically indie artists, and then I want you to give advice to artists that may be currently in bad deals, wanting to get out.
Absolutely. Let me start with the indie artists because that's where my passion is, where my heart is. You know, as I said earlier in this podcast, like, take a map and draw a 5-hour driving radius around where you're based. And that's your target market. Don't try to reach the whole world. Don't try to reach the whole United States. Just reach like a 5 to 7 state radius and really go in and work every city and town in that area. Make the best music you can. Make sure that you have the funding to do this, because at the very least, it's going to take gas money and an internet connection to do this, you know, and a cell phone so you can stay in touch. You know, make sure that you have everything you need, make a list of everything you need, price it out, and then that's your budget. And then go get that budget and then, you know, move forward. You know, be unrelenting, be diligent, just work really hard. On my YouTube page, which is youtube.com/thisiswendyday, there's a shit ton of videos that teach you how to do this. So go in and watch as much as you can stand until your eyes start twitching, you know, but go and learn. And then don't just use me as a resource, like go and study what other people are saying too. Cause at some point my videos are going to get old and I can't necessarily remove everything from the internet. I can take them down when they're not accurate anymore, but there's still all of the people that have, you know, grabbed them and put them on their websites. I can't remove everything. So go and do the research, make sure what I'm saying is accurate, and then go follow through. For sure. And follow through is 99% of your success in this business. Showing up, doing what you're supposed to do, follow through. That's really the bulk of it. You know, it's a lot of work.
Absolutely. And to the artist that might be in a bad deal now.
Yeah, that's a little harder. And let me address it from a different angle. Let me address it from don't get in a bad deal to begin with. Period. And then I'll address it from what happens if you end up in one. Make sure that you have a team of people around you that know what they're doing. They should have verifiable, that means you can verify it, verifiable experience in the music industry. Make sure that they're who they say that they are, because it's really easy to scam artists in today's world. I didn't think it would be with the internet, but the internet has aided and abetted that. Yeah. It's made it so much easier to fuck people over. Yeah. So make sure your team is the best team you can put together at the level that you're at, and make sure that everybody is stepping on the same foot at the same time. Make sure you're organized, make sure you're structured, make sure that you're all playing a role in building your career, and then let people play their role. If you're an artist, don't step in and try to micromanage your manager. Don't try to micromanage your lawyer. Let people do what they're good at. You chose them because they're good at what they do. And if you have to micromanage them, get rid of them, because that means it's the wrong person. You need people that are going to move forward on your behalf, that you can trust, and that have relationships and a good reputation in the music industry. If you do find, even with a great team, that you get into a situation where, you know, and it happens, like maybe you sign to a label and along comes another artist who's popping and they sign that artist after you, but they want to put that artist out first because that artist has a bigger buzz. So now you're just sitting still. You're going to have to take your own career into your own hands. Don't look at being signed to somebody else as the end all be it. And now you just sit back and say, wake me when I'm famous.
Right.
You know, you got to get up and you got to go build that buzz and work yourself. Don't sit around whining or lamenting that you're in a fucked up situation. Get up and go make a better situation for yourself.
Amen.
And once you're popping, they will come back around and want to put money in you, because people sign artists because they want to make money. That's all it is. It's all about the money.
Absolutely.
As sad as that is. It's
true.
All about the money.
It's true. If you're, I mean, and if you, I mean, look at yourself too. Like, if you're a product. You're, as an artist,
Absolutely.
or you're selling a product rather, and you're
well, you are a product.
You are a product,
and that's the hard part, because you're human. You're not a roll of toilet paper or a bottle of water, you know, or a McDonald's sandwich. You're a living, human, breathing person. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, you've given us like so many keys. I'm just very thankful that I was able to sit down.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you.
It took 2 years for me to get here, and I apologize for that.
It's just okay. It happened.
I'm all over the place. It did. Everything happens when it's supposed to.
Yes, and
thank you for doing this.
No problem. All right, so before we let you go, I want to know, because I did ask you this question, like, who are your faves of all time, but specifically, who's your favorite rapper?
I'm assuming as a rapper, not as a business person, right?
No, okay. Just as the rap, the music.
The music. Yeah. I have two favorites, and they're a little bit old school. One is Razkaz. I love me some Razkaz.
Kurt loves Razkaz.
I'm right with you. Like his lyrical prowess is just.
Have you seen the videos where he's breaking that? Yeah,
I have. So. And you know what's funny? Because he's also my friend, and he became my friend because I was a fan, right? Like, I just stalked him so much that he was like, okay, Wendy, what? But I used to be able to like call him and say, yo, dude, you said da-da-da-da-da-da. What does that mean? You know, because he's like so over my head. And his lyrical prowess to me is almost like a puzzle. Plus, like, we have the same mindset. So many of his beliefs are also my beliefs. So, like, when he says shit, it's like, oh, I think that. Oh, my God, I love the way he said it. Because he'll, like, twist it and make it just, like, so clever and so amazing. And
Where are you originally from?
Philadelphia.
Philly, you are.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a Philly girl. And this is really going to blow your mind, because who could be possibly more opposite than Razkaz than Young Jeezy, right? Not the new Young Jeezy, but the old Young Jeezy. Yeah. You know, like 101 is like probably the album that I've listened to more than any other fucking album. And I'm just like such a Jeezy fan. So here's Razkaz on one hand, and then here's G, like that in my head. That makes a, you know.
It pretty much describes all the types of artists you've worked with, though. Like, you can get so many ends of the spectrum with the types of people that you work with over the years. So that makes sense, actually.
Yes. Good. Okay, good. I'm glad it does.
Jeezy's a great artist.
To me, it doesn't. It's like, huh?
I need to familiarize myself more with Razkaz just a little bit more, because I started learning through
Nature of the Threat.
Okay.
And that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Nature of the Threat.
Thank you.
Start there.
Speaking of, you know, just like your experience in the industry in general, just you've worked with a number of artists from then to now. What would you say, or would you say that the quality or the actual music is important from the 90s to where it is now?
You know, I think that quality in music has always been important. Even since the 80s, when I first started listening to rap, I think it's the assessment of what quality means is what's changing. So I don't think that, like, I can look at quality in 2018 through 1996 eyes. Mm-hmm. You know, what fans want today and what they expect today are very different. It's sort of like cars, the way that the size of cars have changed, their fuel economy has changed. They've gotten more like short and They look more like little rockets, or they look like little boxes. The entire design of cars has changed.
That's true.
And it's not that they're better or worse, they're just different. And I look at hip hop the same way, not to say hip hop's a car, but I look at hip hop the same, where it's just changing and it's evolving. Like, I can't put Lil Uzi Vert, okay, bad example. I can't put Extestacion. I can't even say his name. Like I'm saying. So I can't put X next to Jay-Z and compare them, or next to now that he's passed away, I can't put him next to Biggie and compare them. But I also wouldn't want to take away from his fans and say that what they feel in his loss is any less than what I felt or what we felt when Biggie passed.
Exactly.
Because it's still a brokenhearted fan is a brokenhearted fan. And, they still are, they drove his music to #1, just like my generation did, or the 90s generation did when Biggie was killed, and when Pac was killed. It's fan love is fan love. Yeah. Whether we deem the music worthy or not, they do. Mm-hmm. So I try not to take away or impose my vision of what music should be, having come up from the 80s, because it's always changing.
Yeah,
I
even
just try
sonically,
to accept it for what it
changed tremendously.
Oh my God, yeah.
Tremendously. It's like you develop this ear, or we're programmed. Somebody recently told me something about like metaphysics and like the way that they set you probably are familiar a little bit, but like the way that they've set, I guess, pitch. Right. So to our ears, or what we're programmed over time to hear. Yes. That's also just like another piece to that.
Absolutely. Like, everything's faster now. Even though the music is slowing down, everything is kind of faster now. And I noticed that, I bring my experience to this, right? So like, one of my artists will make a slow song, and in my head, I'm thinking, we can't take to the strip club because the ass can't clap to it, right? And that's a problem. Like, that's kind of how I think when somebody's making a club song. And then I'll take it to a club and test it, and they can. Right. And I'm blown away by that, because it's like, well, wait, they couldn't do that in my head. How come they can do that in real life? And it's just, I'm looking at it from the sensibility of a different era. So I have to learn to test everything and get reaction and base it off of facts, not based off of what my perception is. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
For sure. So you mentioned earlier too, just for those that may be at a trying point in their careers, or feeling like, is it really worth it to move forward? And I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to reiterate, after the Cash Money deal, when you were close to losing it all, but you kept going, what was that driving force?
It never crossed my mind to stop back then. Like, it didn't cross my mind until after I was through the bad period and things were getting better, where I was like, wow, I never even thought about quitting. Isn't that funny? I don't know what made me persevere. The only answer that I can give you is that when I did their deal, my goal wasn't financial. Like, I wasn't doing it to get paid. I was doing it because I wanted that deal to happen so that I could go and do another one just like it and another one just like it. I saw it as the change in the music industry that gave more artists ownership. Of course, I didn't expect MP3s and LimeWire and Kazaa, at that point in time, or Napster. But my goal was to make record deals more friendly, and I accomplished that. So when they didn't pay me and I got evicted, and all my belongings were put out on the stoop in Brooklyn, and I wasn't home. I was in Chicago at the time, which, I couldn't even save my belongings. There wasn't really that point in time where I even considered giving up. There have been other times where I've thought about it, somewhat recent even, where it was just very challenging for me to make money in music. And I was finding that the artist that I was working with, it was really hard to get him to do what he needed to do. I was working harder than he was, and it was very frustrating because even with everything I was doing, you know, he was looking at me like it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I was supposed to make him famous instead of me coaching him to be famous.
Working
right?
alongside you. Yeah.
And there was a point where I was like, well, is this the whole new generation? Like, is this what it's going to be? And then along came another artist who needed help and said, you know, I really need your help. And, you know, I came into it thinking that it was going to be the same frustration, and it wasn't. And it was like, oh, wow, this guy really gets it. Like, this guy understands being independent, and this guy understands the moves that we'll need to make. And he really listened, and he outworked me. Like, he was calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning saying, what can I do today? What can I do next?
Wow.
And that energy is what kind of brought me back from the edge, saying, okay, maybe I don't need to go, you know, into real estate or, you know,
Something
go
else.
into tech or, you know, find something else to do to feed myself. Maybe I can still do this.
That's dope.
And then when my mindset changed, like all these clients and people started coming to me.
Yeah, energy.
Like I had been blocking myself and didn't realize.
Yeah.
Because I was so unhappy.
You got to shift the energy and your focus for sure.
I felt like I got out of jail. Like, no joke. Like, I felt like I got released from prison. It was amazing.
Freedom.
Yeah.
That's dope. But let me ask you this about time. Like, why time management? It seems like you have to, I mean, just over your career, you've had to manage clients and different things that you're dealing with your own company. How important is time management for you? Hugely
important. Like, time is my most valuable commodity. I'd rather lose money than time, you know, and a lot of people don't understand that. Like, they'll ask me, hey, Wendy, can you meet with me? No, you know, I can't, because that would be like handing you, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You were very specific with even when we were coordinating this podcast, but like, okay,
it's so
I have
hard.
this date.
I have this date or this date and this time. Yeah.
So
it's
let's
really
figure it out.
hard. Exactly. You know, for me, I plan my schedule. I do it I plan my schedule 3 weeks ahead. And then every Sunday I plan what's happening for that week in between whatever's scheduled. And, you know, for me, I love to sleep. So I'm not going to do, like when I started Rap Coalition, I used to sleep 4 hours a night, no more, because I become a bitch when I don't have enough sleep. I'm really miserable. So I've learned I need 7 or 8 hours. So I schedule in sleep, as crazy as that sounds. And then I figure out like what I need to do during the day. And then there's certain things that are time wasters for me, like social media, which I have to do, but it's a time waster. Returning phone calls and emails for people that just have basic questions. It's, you know, it's important and I have to do it. But for me, it's a time waster. I could be working with a client or, you know, like solving world peace or something.
Doing something else.
Yeah, doing something else at that point in time. Laundry, you know, whatever. But I've learned to delegate, which is very, very, very difficult for me. That's the hardest thing for me to learn was delegation. I've learned to delegate to my staff. I've learned to not do what I'm not good at. So I let other people do what I suck at. And I've learned to just like trust other people. And even though I'm a perfectionist, they may not do it as in the same way that I would do it, but it gets done.
Exactly.
And I've had to learn to let go. But scheduling is really, really key for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. It's a great question.
It's a great question.
Thanks, Keyshawn.
And I make sure that I'm never late, even though I walked in here like 4 minutes late today.
You were only 4 minutes late.
Exactly. Like I make sure
worse.
that like I'm always on time wherever I go.
I appreciate that about you. And you're just a great person. It's
Thanks.
really good to talk to you. No, you're a good person.
Right.
Yeah, you know, people don't like to talk about themselves, so it's really hard to get people.
Yeah, it makes you really uncomfortable.
Especially behind the scenes. But you did a great job, and I'm sure that the people listening and watching have learned a lot from you. So
I
thank
hope so. That's my goal. That's always my goal.
Tell them where they can find you on social media.
YouTube is probably the thing that's going to benefit you the most. It's youtube.com/thisiswendyday. I also have them posted on rapjewels.com. And I set up Rap Jewels because to me, YouTube is just a big mess. Like it's not organized. I know they're trying to fix that now, but you can't really see what order things are in, and it's a mess. So I set up rapjewels.com. I have industryreport.com, which is my blog. I don't do that as much as I should. Raponomics.com is my blog. I think there's only 5 episodes posted, but I'm going to start doing interviews again, which will make it a lot more fun for me because just talking to a microphone by myself
it's not as
like
exciting.
masturbation. It's not as exciting. Exactly. So I'll start doing interviews with some of my industry friends and get the knowledge out that way. And then my social media of choice is Instagram, and I'm at Rap Coalition.
Dope.
And I'm at Rap Coalition on all social media. I'm not a Facebook person. I'm not a Twitter person. Instagram's really the best way to reach me.
Dope. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much.
As always, you guys can follow this podcast at IDM Podcast on Instagram, as well as my platform is Sammy Approved on all social media platforms, excuse me. And thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me.
Thank you for doing this, like in general, not just with me, but like your podcasts are so awesome. And I know that you guys don't make money doing this. It's sheer love. So the fact that not only that you've done it, but that you've done it for so long, and look at all the people in this room that it has taken to pull this together. Like, you guys are here as volunteers, and I love that you're doing this. And thank you. Thank you.
You're awesome.
No,
all
thank
right,
you.
Y'all take care, and I'll talk to you guys again, I guess.
Yay.
Yeah.
Sonically superior.